Hello guys, we're with another election prediction video. This time it's the 2024 Republican primary. Only if Donald Trump doesn't run. It's a possibility. I would say it's about a 20% chance, maybe 10% around there on the odds of that happening. So let's get right into this prediction. These are like the top 5 candidates I feel would be in the 2024 Republican primary. DeSantis, governor of Florida; Cruz, senator from Texas; Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina; Mike Pence, former vice president; and Mitt Romney, the 2012 presidential candidate and senator from Utah. So there's a lot of different lanes in this primary. There's the establishment wing of the party, that is Romney and Nikki Haley, and I would probably say a bit of Pence. He's like in the middle, I would say. Cruz and DeSantis are the outsiders. They're not establishment on either side of these two. So let's get right into it. So first state would be Iowa, and I would have to give it to Cruz. I think he would win it by. Fiddle the numbers a little bit. I think it'll be a close contest between Cruz and DeSantis because there's a lot of anti-establishment voters in the Republican primary. I think Romney would do actually pretty good here. He has some good Midwestern appeal to establishment voters, so he'll get the most votes out of that block. Pence, I can see Pence getting around 15% of the vote, and I think Nikki Haley get 5th place. Placements really matter when it's a multi-candidate primary, so she would get 5th. In New Hampshire, that's a winner-take-all state. I would say it's an interesting scenario. I don't really think. Actually, you could argue the establishment voters would do pretty. Like they would actually support Romney here by a lot. It's interesting. I think Cruz would do pretty bad in this state, just because he never does good in somewhat liberal areas or northern areas. He kind of struggles in a lot, especially in the Northeast. I would have to give it to probably DeSantis. He would win this state. Let me just fill it in red for DeSantis. He would win. I think Romney would get 2nd, Cruz would get 3rd, Pence 4th, Nikki Haley 5th again. At this point, I think Nikki Haley drops out of the race because her polling numbers are probably awful in her home state of South Carolina at this point. Placements really matter. Honestly, it would be a close contest between DeSantis and Cruz in South Carolina. Could go either way between those two, but I would have to give it to DeSantis just because he's from the neighboring state of Florida, and I feel like he could capture those types of Trump voters better than Cruz can in the state of South Carolina. Nevada, you could give Romney a pretty high placement here. I don't think he wins the state. I think it's 2nd or 3rd. Same with DeSantis, 2nd or 3rd, and Cruz would take this state. Just because I feel like he could. You could probably capture Latino Republicans here, Cruz, because of his background from Texas. He would probably do pretty well with those voters in that state. So let's head on to Super Tuesday. You could argue that Pence might drop out, and honestly, he probably would at this point if he won 0 states and he done 4th in every race. I think he would drop out. So now it's a 3-candidate race between Romney, Cruz, and DeSantis. So let's get right into it. So usually the Super Tuesday states I have them pretty much like memorized most of the time. Vermont, Massachusetts, and Maine. I think Romney would win all 3 of these. He used to be from New England. He used to be from Massachusetts. He would totally carry Massachusetts. Massachusetts Republicans are a lot more liberal than their conservative counterparts in the rest of the country. Same with Vermont. You know how these liberal Republican governors, they're moderate Republican governors. Those types of voters exist up here in New England. They're a lot more moderate and centrist, so he would capture them, especially in Maine too. Maine probably the weakest of his 3 states here, but I feel like he would still win it, just because Cruz and DeSantis are splitting the anti-establishment vote, and Romney would probably win Maine by like 37%, some number like that in the high 30s, low 40s. Next few states. Virginia, that could go, it's a 3-way race here, but I would have to give it to Romney just because the anti-establishment voters are splitting their votes like crazy. But I don't think it matters because Virginia's actually, I think it might be a proportional state in the Republican primary. I'm not too sure on that. It could change. But Alabama and Georgia, they would go to DeSantis. There's very similar states in the Republican primary. Not in the general election. They're completely different. But in the Republican primary, they're very similar. You would definitely carry these states against Cruz. I mean, those are the main competitor here. Romney would have no chance. The establishment vote's not big enough in those two states for the Republican side. North Carolina would also probably go to Ron DeSantis here. Tennessee, that's going to be an interesting battleground state between Cruz and DeSantis. But Texas and Oklahoma, Cruz won this in the 2016 Republican primary. I have no doubt he would win it here. Even Arkansas, Cruz would win this state too. It's very similar to Oklahoma. And Tennessee, interesting state. Let me just think about it. Actually, I think Ted Cruz would carry this state, believe it or not, against DeSantis. I just feel like he would have a better appeal, especially in this state. It's interesting. I don't know. It could go either way. But let's get to Minnesota. Minnesota is that weird state in the Republican primary. They always usually vote for, like, the third place candidate, so that's why Romney would win it. Plus, they actually have a good amount of establishment Republicans here, which will be enough for him to win a plurality. All right, Colorado's next. Ted Cruz would win this state. It would be an interesting contest between Romney and Cruz here, just because Romney's from Utah, and that would probably give him a bit of an advantage. And let's move on to Utah. Romney would hands down win this state. Are you kidding me? He would easily win it. No doubt about it. It's home state advantage, very important in the primary. California is an interesting one. Could go either way between DeSantis and Cruz, but I'm thinking the energy would be on DeSantis' side, especially if he wins some states early on, and I think he would carry it. So right now, honestly, you would probably have to give the advantage to Cruz. He probably did win more states right now, and Romney's actually doing a lot better than I thought he would, just because Pence and Nikki Haley dropped out, and they would probably endorse Romney. Or they would just stay out entirely, but Romney would still capture those establishment votes away from those two candidates. All right. Trying to think. Oh yeah, the next Super Tuesday is usually Florida, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, and Arizona. DeSantis, no doubt, would win Florida, and no doubt would probably win Ohio as well, because Cruz doesn't really perform well in northeastern states, and I feel like that would carry into Ohio a little bit just because of Pennsylvania bordering it, and I think that would kind of matter in this state. Illinois, that's a battleground state. Cruz would probably no doubt win Missouri, though. Illinois could be interesting. Romney might have a chance of winning this state right in Illinois, just because the anti-establishment voters are splitting their votes so much. I think Romney would win by a very, very small margin, like 35%. Well, DeSantis and Cruz each get 30, 32 each probably. Be very, very close. Arizona, Cruz would probably win it, just because Texas is somewhat closer to Arizona, and they have similar demographics there. That would probably help them. Now, for the rest of the states, Romney would win D.C., and I think he would probably win Hawaii, too, just because I think there's a lot of moderate Republicans there, and he could capture those votes. He would also probably win Idaho. But let's get the Alaska out of the way. Cruz would win the state. It's a very rural state, and that's where Cruz's base really comes from. Puerto Rico would probably also go to Cruz in this scenario, while DeSantis would probably win the rest of the island primaries. Cruz would probably do extremely well in the Mountain States region and New Mexico. New Mexico gives neighboring state advantage, and I said before, rural voters would go to Cruz. Louisiana would probably go to Cruz just because of the neighboring state advantage. He has such an advantage coming from Texas, honestly. Huge one. But DeSantis would pick off Mississippi, just because I think there's a different type of voter there, and I think DeSantis could win them over. They probably do better with the Trump supporters here. Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia. I could see Romney maybe trying to have a chance at Indiana, but I don't think it'll be enough to win it. I think DeSantis would carry it. Same with West Virginia and Kentucky. We'd probably do well in this Rust Belt Midwestern regions. especially in Michigan. Wisconsin, honestly, it's a pretty rural state, and I'd give it to Cruz here. And then we go into the Northeast. I'm betting Romney's still running at this point, so he'd probably pick off Rhode Island and Connecticut, while DeSantis manages to win New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and PA against Cruz. We'd probably easily win them just because Cruz does awful in the Northeast. Honestly, with Washington State, I think DeSantis would win it as well, while Cruz would win Oregon. And that's my primary prediction for the 2024 Republican primary. And this, I think, it would probably go to a contested convention if Romney was able to secure enough delegates. But if I were to make a prediction, I would say Ron DeSantis would be the nominee. I think Cruz would work out a deal if he got second, and Cruz would be Ron DeSantis' vice president. I could see that ticket forming in a scenario like this, honestly. Well, Romney did pretty well. I did better than I expected, just because the anti-establishment voters have split their votes so much among the two anti-establishment candidates. So he just won these states, a lot of these states, just by splitting the votes, which is quite interesting. But that's my prediction of the 2024 Republican primary if Donald Trump doesn't run in 2024. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.